This lecture I would be talking about the basic architecture of the skeletal muscle, functional anatomy of the skeletal muscle, and adaptations to the specific trainings, particularly endurance and anaerobic trainings. So skeletal muscle, otherwise known as voluntary muscles. These muscles are voluntary muscles. Skeletal muscles, the muscles which are attached to the skeleton, so skeletal bone. So these are the tendons and skeletal muscle belly. We have muscle fibers. This is muscle belly, and here we have muscle fascicles, myofibrils. So, and these skeletal muscles essentially innervated with the alpha motor neurons. So these are the alpha motor neuron or anterior horn cell neurons, which are having the innervation from the higher centers, from the motor cortex of the brain. So these are the descending corticospinal tract neurons. So there is a connectivity from the higher center, so motor cortex. So from motor cortex, the descending fibers ending on the anterior motor neuronal cells. These are called alpha motor neurons. So these alpha motor neuron essentially supplies to the number of muscle fibers. So these myofibrils are single fibril of the skeletal muscle having the connection with the motor neurons. We have one motor neuron, neuron 2. So motor unit, this is called motor unit. So motor unit means one single motor neuron supplies number of muscle fibers. So this is called motor unit, one unit. The same we can appreciate here in the electron microscopic structure. We have the dark spots. So these dark spots are known as neuromuscular junction. So this fiber kind of structure is motor neuron. So this is motor neuron. So motor neuron ending on the myofibril or muscle fiber by neuromuscular junction. So neuromuscular junction is the junctional part of neuron to muscle. So this is muscle. So we have contractile elements in the muscle, neuromuscular junction. So neuromuscular junction is nothing but a junctional part or communicating part between neuron and muscle. So where the electrical activity, the action potential propagates towards muscles, the excitability which is coming from the brain. So as I mentioned earlier, these are motor neurons and the muscles are voluntary muscles. Voluntary means the contraction is possible as and when the motor cortex is activated from the brain. The communication descends down via corticospinal tract to the alpha motor neuron, to the motor unit, to the muscle fiber, and contraction is possible via the communication from the neuron to the muscle is possible through only neuromuscular junction, NMJ. So from where the electrical communication is being transferred to the muscles for the contractile process. Let us move on to the next slide. So this is a structure of skeletal muscle. Further, the skeletal muscle is attached to the bone via tendon. This is fascia, skeletal muscle fascia, belly. This is belly, and these are the muscles. Epimysium. Epimysium is a layer covered one fascicles. There are number of fascicles. Fascicles means the bundles kind of structure. This is the fascicles, muscle fascicles. So here muscle fascicle. So muscle fascicle is covered by epimysium. It's a fascia, connective tissue fascia. Perimysium, so, and endomysium. Endomysium is again the muscle fiber cell covering. So endomysium. So this is one fascicle. So this is one fascicle. So here we have number of fascicles. One fascicle being highlighted here. Again fascicles has got number of fibril, number of muscle fibers particularly. So again in the number of muscle fiber, so we have spots again. So these spots means the small fiber, small threads, again threads in the one muscle fiber. We have muscle belly and muscle fascicle and muscle fiber, and again inside the muscle fiber we have the myofibrils. These are the muscle functional units. So thick filament, thin filaments are there inside the myofibril. So one myofibril means one single thread of the muscle fiber which is responsible for the contraction. So this is how the structural organization of the skeletal muscle looks like. So and again we have nucleus. So each muscle fiber, so this is muscle fiber, so this is muscle fiber, muscle fiber, muscle fiber, muscle fiber, and again we have nucleus and we have cellular structures. So this is sarcoplasmic reticulum. So where this is sarcoplasmic reticulum, sarcolemma means cell membrane, and again we have inside number of small threads in the one muscle fiber. So those are called myofibrils. Myofibrils are made up of the thick and thin filaments. I would be talking about what are those thin and thick filament in next slide. And again, so when you look at details of the one myofibril, so this is myofibril, this is muscle fiber, and again this is muscle belly fascicles, muscle belly fascicle, muscle fiber and myofibril. This is how the descends the structural organization. So in one myofibril, in one myofibril we have alternative bands, light dark bands. So here, so this is a dark band and this is light area. The areas actually, these are the functional areas. So these areas are being seen under microscope. So these areas can be visualized under microscopes, the dark area and the light area. So alternative areas under the microscope can be seen in the one myofibril. So we have one line here, one line here. Those are called Z lines, Z. So Z lines. So in between Z lines we have the thick filament. This is called myosin, and this is known as myosin filaments or thick filament or darker area. So this is one line, imaginary line, so called M line. Either side we have attachments of the myosin filaments. The myosin filaments are thicker proteins, thick proteins or dark proteins, or the protein lies either side of the M line. So this area is G line. So between the area from one G to another G, this is Z, this is called sarcomere. Sarcomere. So this is one functional area of the muscle, one skeletal muscle particularly. So we have myosin, we have actin filament. So this is actin filament. So thin filament, lighter filaments. So actin filaments are attached here. So these are actin filaments. So this is myosin filaments. Right. So the actin myosin filaments are the structural and functional proteins in the muscles. These are the muscle proteins helping for the muscle contraction. And sarcomere is structural functional unit of the muscle fiber. So I will be explained further the sarcomere structure in the subsequent slides. Now muscle proteins, as I mentioned, we have Z line here, Z line here. This is the sarcomere. This is A band is nothing but dark band, I band is nothing but light band. So the light band is made up of actin filaments, dark band A is made up of myosin filaments. So this is the blue color in lines indicating the myosin fibers, and the red color lines indicating the actin filaments. So this is again I band, lighter band. This is again A band, darker band. So we have myosin, we have actin. So between two Z lines. So this is sarcomere again. And if you magnify this area, so we have myosin heads. So this is complete myosin filament. This is actin filaments. So actin filaments again attach with the alpha tropomyosin, troponin T, troponin I. The troponin C is not shown here. Troponin C is somewhere here. C stands for the calcium. This is myosin binding protein C. The actin and myosins usually interact. The myosin head usually binds with the actin. This is a globular protein, actin. So, and this is the thread. So light thread having the three globules TIC, troponin C, troponin I, troponin T. So globular protein again here 3. So we attach with one single thread. This is called alpha tropomyosin. So actin myosin usually interact. Actin and myosin usually interact. The myosin head go and attach with the actin protein, right, and it detach again. So here it is about to attach, the myosin head is about to attach with the actin filament. So during contraction, the actin myosin fibers or filaments are in interaction, attachment position. In relaxed position, in the muscle, the tropomyosin is a small thread, usually covers the actin myosin binding site, so that it inhibits the interaction between actin and myosin during the relaxation. During contraction, the thread usually undergo some conformational change. That conformational change of the thread facilitates exposure of the actin myosin binding site while contraction, right. So in this sarcomere we can able to notice sarcoplasmic reticulum, which is very much essential, highly developed sarcoplasmic reticulum inside the muscle fiber, which is facilitating the calcium storage or calcium handling while contraction and relaxation process. So muscle contraction, the process of muscle contraction. So as I mentioned, the motor neuron, which is acting as a wires of electricity conductor from the brain to the muscle fiber, and these muscle fiber we have a lot of myofibrils, again small myofibrils. So myofibrils made up of sarcomere. So this is sarcomere and this is contractile process. So contraction of the muscle is termed as excitation, contraction, coupling. So the excitability has to reach to the muscle fiber from the brain first, the first point, and the contraction of the muscle is possible only with the help of the calcium ions, the coupling agent, excitation, electrical activity coming from the brain to the muscle fiber or myofibril. Contraction of the muscle fiber is possible with the help of coupling agent is calcium ion in the muscles. So now this illustration showing the relaxed position of the sarcomere and contract position of the sarcomere. We can appreciate here the gap between the two actin filaments. So there is a gap between two actin filaments. The Z lines are decreased its length to Z lines. The sarcomere is decreased its length during the contraction because the myosin filaments holding the or interacting with the actin filaments and dragging either sides. So this imaginary line, M line, right? So here either side of the filaments are being dragged during the contraction position. So in 3D picture, so this is the view, this is myosin, actin filaments, this is Z line. So he is being is being decreased. This line, this imaginary line is decreased during the contractile state. So during contraction, these myosin filaments dragging the actin filaments from either sides, pulling. These myosin filaments essentially pulls the actin filaments, pulling. So the length of sarcomere is decreased, and again once the ATP breaks, the contraction is over, again ATP break up and relax. So this is how the cycle of the contraction or contractile process happens in the muscles. Once again, so the energized, the myosin head binds with the actin filament and drags or pulls towards the myosin M line, and again the breaking of ATP, a new ATP molecule binds with the myosin head and breaks up and it causes relaxation. This is cyclical process. The excitation causing the contraction with the help of calcium ions. What is the role of calcium ion here? So plasma membrane, once the action potential comes and hits here the muscle fiber, plasma membrane, so it passes through the AP, action potentials or excitability, and it activates dihydropyridine receptor and activates the calcium release into the sarcoplasmic tubule system. This is called the transverse tubule. Invagination of the muscle sarcolemma or muscle cell membrane. So cell membrane invagination into the cell deeper structure. So in this we have different kind of receptor, dihydropyridine receptor and RYR receptors. So the R/R receptor present in the sarcoplasmic reticulum. So sarcoplasmic reticulum, this is modified sarcoplasmic reticulum present inside the cell of the skeletal muscle. The R/R receptors are handling the calcium outpouring. So this calcium, which is stored in the sarcoplasmic reticulum, modified sarcoplasmic reticulum or mitochondria, comes out into the cytosol, released into the cytosol in the action, during the action potential, during contraction process, and binds with the troponin C. Troponin C. So it facilitates. So troponin C, it facilitates conformational change of this thin thread, which is covered with the active sites of actin. So the tropomyosin conformational change happens as and when calcium binds with the calcium binding protein C. So as and when it exposes the active sites, so it interact with the myosin head. The actin filaments interact with the myosin head with the help of ATP breakage. ATP binds and ATP breaks. So this is how action potential propagates inside the cytosol of the muscle fiber or myofibril and causing the release of calcium, and this calcium binding with the troponin C, and troponin C facilitates the exposure of active binding sites of the actin myosin actin filaments, so that actin myosin interaction is possible with the help of ATP breakage. So this is how muscle contraction happens. So coming to the fiber types, in skeletal muscle we have different kind of fibers. So we have type 1 fiber, type 2A, type B fibers. So these are the skeletal muscles or contractile fibers or myofibril or muscle fibers. There are two types of muscle fibers particularly, and intermittent type of fiber. So one is slow oxidative and the second is fast glycolytic and fast twitch oxidative glycolytic. This is intermittent kind of muscle fiber. So in any muscle fiber, if you look at the muscle fiber of an athlete, so we have different kinds of muscle fibers. Functional point of view. So this is functional point of view. Different kinds of muscle fiber varieties are three: slow oxidative, fast oxidative glycolytic, intermittent, and type 1B is fast glycolytic. So these fast glycolytic fibers seen in the sprinters, short high intensity short burst activities, the players which performs particularly 100, for example 100-meter sprints. We see majority of the fibers, muscle fibers, skeletal muscle fibers are type 1B. So if you look at the slow endurance long distance runners, we particularly see the slow oxidative type 1 fibers of the skeletal muscles majority. So here these are the characteristics of each muscle fiber having different specific characteristics feature and intramuscular and extramuscular fuel sources for the exercise metabolism. During exercise, the skeletal muscle usually depends on the energy source, particularly glucose and free fatty acids. So these glucose and free fatty acids usually mobilized from the liver, fat, and from muscle itself. So these are the locations of the energy fuel from the extra muscular area or extra muscle source, which is usually mobilizing during the exercise. So kindly refer the reference given here. These are the very important or specific references I obtained from. So you can go through complete details of the each the slide basis on the reference given here. And we can also appreciate the storage capacity of energy yield storage capacity of the glucose or fat in the each organ, right? And next we move on. So this slide shows the relative contribution of the carbohydrate and fat fuel sources during the exercise. So as we increase the intensity of exercise, so now here the intensity of exercise is shown out here with the percentage of VO2 max from 25%, 65%, 50% approximately, and anaerobic zone, that is 85% of VO2 max. So here the plasma glucose, FFA, free fatty acids, triglycerides, muscle glycogen, how these substrates contribute depends on your intensity of exercise. As you increases your intensity of exercise, the majority contribution is made by muscle glycogen, and with the low intensity, the majority contribution by free fatty acids. In resting or submaximal exercise, so our muscles essentially utilize majority of free fatty acids, triglycerides, plasma free fatty acids, and during the high intensity activity, the muscle utilizes the muscle glycogen or majority carbohydrate substrate for the energy yield. And energy metabolism during intensity exercise. Suppose if a person starts exercise, high intensity exercise, starting from 0 to 6 seconds, 15 seconds, 30 seconds, we can appreciate the ATP turnover utility, the contributions, the ATP turnover contribution, majority up to 6 seconds by, so this phosphoryl creatine, which is ready-made energy, and this is phosphoryl creatine. So majority contribution is seen with the phosphoryl creatine up to 6 seconds, and glycolysis starts after glycolysis gives up its maximum yield here up to 6 seconds. Up to 6 seconds we have phosphoryl creatine, and glycolysis contribute major energy turnover or major yield of ATP, whereas up to 15 seconds we have the glycolysis plays a major role, and up to 30 seconds majority is being contributed by oxidative phosphorylation. So beginning of exercise up to 6 seconds, phosphoryl creatine, ready-made ATP-CP system, and glycolysis is contributing majority of ATP yield, and whereas after up to 15 seconds, so majority contribution of ATP is come from glycolysis, and up to 30 seconds and above is coming from oxidative phosphorylation. This is how the muscle uses the energy by different energy sources. The energy here is ATP for the contraction relaxation process. And adaptation in the muscles, particularly here seen on long run basis, is ATP turnover, increasing the ATP turnover and increasing the glycogenolysis, glucose uptake, lipolysis, and free fatty acid uptake. So these are the long-term exercise changes in the muscles, metabolic changes. Increases oxygen utilization and carbon dioxide heat production. So the carbon dioxide elimination and utilization increases, and management of the heat also facilitates for the longer or high intensity contractions, and increases the blood flow and capillary recruitment, release of biologically active molecules, myokines, with the autocrine, paracrine and endocrine effects also seen in the muscles. So ultimately muscles increases the oxidative capacity. Oxidative capacity. Oxidative capacity means utilization of the oxygen per unit time. The muscle oxidative capacity increases over a period of regular training, and it minimizes the lactate production, lactic acid. So the lactic acid production will be minimized, so that increased lactate threshold, right? And free fatty utilization, increase free fatty utilization during the submaximal or resting state in order to maintain the running economy. And here the same changes seen in the DNA level of activation of certain genes in the DNA of exercising muscles, increasing myogenesis, muscular hypertrophy, angiogenesis. Apart from these changes, these are myogenesis, muscle genesis, production of the more muscles, muscular hypertrophy, muscle size, increasing muscle size, angiogenesis, production of the new blood vessels. These are the long-term changes usually seen in the regular training of skeletal muscles, which are involving in regular training, the skeletal muscle which involving in the regular training. And here this slide shows splitting of the muscles, the bifurcation of the muscle here. So in this illustration you can able to see how the muscle bifurcates, splits into the two. So this happens during the extreme long hypertrophied muscle. Fibers sometimes appear branched or split fibers also can seen, and branching and new genesis of the muscle fiber or myofibril seen in the regular training. So this is this slide shows the fiber splitting is a physiological response to extreme loading in animals, extreme loading particularly in animal. So scientists also proven that the humans also have such kind of hypertrophied muscles with the splitting process in regular training as a adaptive mechanism. And here this slide shows how high intensity interval training along with the resistant training, particularly high intensity interval training, increases the muscle hypertrophy and oxidative capacity. So remember the oxidative capacity, as I mentioned, in utilization capacity of the oxygen per given time, that is called oxidative capacity. So oxidative capacity is one of the key adaptive factor in the muscle adaptation to the training is concerned. Muscle oxidative capacity very significantly increases due to regular training, and muscle mass and strength also increases in any kind of training, particularly depends on the type of training. So skeletal muscle adaptation to the exercise training, muscle mass, hypertrophy, number of the size, increase in the size of cells, muscle fiber cells, and hyperplasia, different increasing the number of fibers in the skeletal muscle. So genetic implications, activation of the certain genes are essential key factors according to training. This activation of the genetic signals promote the protein synthesis, mitochondria, and certain enzymes are key factors for proliferation of the cells. So remember, the mitochondria number increases very significantly in the trained athlete muscles. So this slide shows how low oxidative fibers, particularly type 2B fibers, are usually adapts its number of mitochondria to the intensity of exercise, regular high intensity of exercise. Here increases its number of mitochondria very significantly, so that it facilitates the oxidative capacity of the muscle fiber. So the take home message of this slide is the low oxidative type 2B fibers becomes more adaptive in terms of number of mitochondria. Mitochondria number increases in order to facilitate the oxygen supply during the exercise. And this slide shows the adaptation of the GLUT4, glucose transporters 4, and GLUT6 due to endurance training and resistance training respectively. So the training facilitates or enhances the responsiveness of the glucose transporters. Particularly, it has been proven that the GLUT4 essentially increases their number in endurance training. And this slide shows how the low the carbohydrate diet, low carb diet enhances the gene activation, specific gene activations in the nucleus of the muscle fiber as well as mitochondria, so that it enhances the or facilitates the free fatty acid utility and decreases the fatigueness, feeling of fatigueness. That means increases the time for fatigueness, and that is otherwise called exercise exhaustion time. So increases the exercise exhaustion time and promotes the mitochondria to enhance the biogenesis to a regular training, and specifically by enhancing the signaling response in the muscles. So the ultimate the take home message of this slide is the low carbohydrate diet would facilitate MAPK and phosphoryl 53 and 38 MAPK, and certain the chemical biosignaling response, activation of certain biochemical signaling response inside the muscle, particularly by activating certain genes in order to improve the delay time for the fatigue and increases the performance by enhancing the mitochondrial the proliferation inside the cell, so that it depends on free fatty acid utility. So this low carbohydrate diet was proven that to improve the performance of an athlete by increasing or decreasing the certain gene activations. So this slide shows how the skeletal muscle undergoes the adaptation to the hypoxic training. So the high altitude exposure to the skeletal muscle or an individual increases the hypoxic inducing factor and enhances the oxidative stress. So these two factors facilitates the skeletal muscle mitochondrial volume and function enhancement, so that ultimately the skeletal muscle try to absorb more oxygen and facilitates the more work output. So exposure to high altitude enhances the relative blood volume by decreasing the plasma content, so that stroke volume will be decreases, and the arteriovenous differences of oxygen is increases, so that ultimately the muscle undergo the metabolic change in order to improve its oxygen utilization efficiency by various chemical messenger biosignaling process modifications. And this slide shows how the regular training adaptation would limits the fatigue, would minimizes or would delay the fatigue process. So here usually fatigue happens in the muscle because of mishandling of the calcium and mishandling of the action potentials and disturbance of the action potential propagation across the cell membrane, which is coming from the higher center, and mishandling of the H+ ions, and mishandling of the metabolic process. So in enhanced exercise performance due to regular training because of adaptation, so these factors usually would be regularized, means it reduce accumulation of the interstitial potassium ions. So the fatigue, one of the cause of the fatigue, accumulation of the potassium ions, and augmentation of the lactate or H+ ion production, so and augmentation of the calcium handling, so and improvement of the metabolic stability. So these factors usually regulated or managed due to regular training in order to decreasing the fatigue, in order to delay the fatigue. So these are the further readings. So kindly see each and every slide, the reference. These are the very important references I obtained from internet. So you can go through each and every internet resource for further details. Thank you.